Introduction of the Contax 2. What year?
1936.
1936. Do we have one from that early? No, the most early one is
earliest
yours?
the 37,
Is-
and that's yours, that's mine. No, it's...
No,
still
this is
this
mine.
one.
That-
Yeah, it's
okay.
this one after all.
Yeah.
Yep.
And together with, only a couple of weeks later, they introduced the Contax 3. And that came with a novelty, a built-in exposure meter. And to my amazement, because this is a Kiev, this one works, but you hardly see any working Kievs. This one is much, much older, and up until I dropped it,
It worked.
it worked. I know what's wrong with it, and it's repairable, but I didn't have the time to do that. But and now within our friend group, there's always this mesmerizing thought that oh well, Hans likes the Contax 3 more than the 2. Well, actually, yes, I do. And why is that? Why am I the laughing stock? Because well, the exposure meter on top of the camera is regarded a doghouse.
Yep. True.
But I like it that way. I also like a Nikon F with an FDN viewfinder. I know I know it's hideous.
Sorry.
I did my school with one of them. God. Okay, but because of the war, the Contax 2 actually was not long in production. Because in 1944 the Allied bombed Dresden, and they the Zeiss-Ikon factory where the Contax 2 and 3 were made was hit big time.
Yeah, after that it was finished.
Yeah. So in 1945, well, because of the factory was bombed and all the administration with it too, there are some gaps in the history of Contax, because people who made them are already dead, and we don't know enough to get that whole story as complete as possible. But we tried, and I think we succeeded to get it from 1936 up until 1961. And after that, the German chapter was closed because. So what happened? Production moved very soon after the war from Dresden, because there was no factory left, to Jena. And in Jena there was a factory from Zeiss-Ikon, and there they made the lenses. That's why on every Carl Zeiss lens from that era it says Carl Zeiss Jena. A very short run of Contax 2 were made after the war, and that's a bit of a mystery. There are Contax 2s known with Zeiss-Ikon Jena on the back, because they all say no, they don't. They don't. No, they only say Zeiss-Ikon. But the Jena cameras, it's a bit of a conflicting story, because actually Zeiss-Ikon never showed this image on the cameras in front. So it's a bit of a conflict. Was it made in Jena or was it old stock? It's a bit of a mystery. Anywho,
There are quite a lot of fakes.
Yeah,
Were made, of course.
and
Yeah.
The production of the Contax was, after the war, was moved to the Ukraine, to Kiev, together with, and we thought There were some sort of prisoners of war, or from for payback, but that turned out not to be true because we found out that a lot of the factory workers were gladly helping the Russians to rebuild a factory in Kiev. That was some sort of an eye opener for me because I thought, I thought they were held hostage or but it wasn't the case.
Yeah, like kidnapped.
Almost kidnapped, but that's not true. It turned out not to be true. And then the story becomes very complicated because in Germany, because of the total destruction of the factory, the engineers of Zeiss-Ikon started designing a completely new Contax, and that's the Contax 2A. Was there even a 3A?
There was.
There was, okay.
Oh yes.
And the Contax 2A is quite a bit smaller than the 2A. And although they look quite the same, there are many big differences between the 2A and the Contax 2, for instance. And one of those is, I think it's
a bit like the Kiev.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. The feet is gone, and they made here we go. Yeah. So what Kiev did was they took the Contax 2 and the Contax 2A and they merged them together more or less. But the technical stuff was still fully Contax 2.
It was.
And this one, well, what Zeiss-Ikon did, and that was for the most part, was they made a new shutter, still using the louvers, but they got rid of one of the weak points, and these are those silk belts. And if a Contax 2 dies, well, this is mainly the reason why they go bad, because they break. And with the Contax 2A, they instead of the belts, they used gears, and that makes the camera quite a bit.
It's noisier.
It's noisier, but it's and they could make it more compact, so that's always a good thing. And they sold them with the normal range of lenses, also known before the war. Were these made in Stuttgart or were these made in Jena?
In Stuttgart.
In Stuttgart.
Yeah.
So, just to add to the more complex story, there's a third town.
Because Jena was East Germany, of course.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, sure.
So that's why they had to recreate Zeiss-Ikon camera work into Western Germany, and that was Stuttgart.
And then there was this myth of the no-name camera.
The no-name Contax.
Was it a Contax?
Yeah. Nope.
Nope,
definitely not.
This is a nice story because the no-name camera, Contax / Kiev, they came with original Carl Zeiss lenses, and that's a funny story. And when we started to study how the whole history worked, we came to a very funny story actually, because what happened in 1961, Contax or Zeiss-Ikon discontinued the production of the 2A and the 3A. But they had a big amount of lenses still in stock, and no camera to mount it on.
No.
And now there are conflicting stories, but I like to believe that this one is true. There is a salesperson that bought all the spare lenses of Carl Zeiss. And that guy sold those lenses to Kiev. But then something happened that we call the Pigs of Bay.
Bay of Pigs.
The Bay of Pigs,
Yeah.
the Cuba crisis, and almost World War III. And in America, it was absolutely forbidden to import stuff coming from Russia. So the man with all the lenses in his pocket had a very nice idea for the. What are you looking for?
Oh, I've already got it.
A very nice idea for all those lenses. So he told the Arsenal factory, well, if you buy my lenses, I know a way to sell the cameras to the US. And that's the reason why the no-name Kievs were sold in the US, because there was no Kiev on the camera, there was even no name on the camera, hence the name. And there was a made in Germany lens on it. But, oh yeah. And the no name was this camera, right?
It was.
And
It was
in the very first of our investigation, I was confused because I thought that the no name camera was made in 1946. And you told me that that couldn't be true.
That's right, because if you check out all the no-name Kievs and you check out the underside, then there's a Kiev 4A underside.
So it could never be
can't be
true.
the two.
No, because that one didn't exist already. Because this one came in 1951.
Yeah.
Numbers.
Yeah, so the no-name Kiev was actually a camera like this, only without the Kiev
writing on it. It was absolutely blank.
It was
There was
blank.
absolutely no names.
Correct, it was entirely
Absolutely
flat.
blank.
But with a Contax lens on it.
With a Carl Zeiss
on it.
lens, yeah.
And so they could sell it to America like, hey, it's a German camera because, hey,
Look,
Carl Zeiss, Jena,
yeah,
Germany.
it was a nice scam, and they succeeded.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was, and they succeeded
like it.
big time because all those no names. If you find one on eBay or Katawiki or whatever, if you find one, well, they are very expensive now, but 9 out of 10 they will come from the United States, and it was boycotted. It wasn't allowed to buy something Russia in America those days.
And it's still being sold as the Contax no name.
Yeah,
but it is of course a Kiev no name.
That should be corrected. We're going to.
I don't think they will.
No. Well then, 1961, Zeiss-Nikon discontinued the whole Contax range, and from that moment forward, only Kiev and Nikon made a Contax like.
Don't forget
object.
the Nikon cameras.
Yeah. Because Nikon was forced after the war to be no military institution anymore, and they started building cameras. And
they started with the lenses.
Yeah, with the lenses.
They built the lenses for the first Canon cameras.
Yeah, the Hansa Canon.
Fun thing.
Yeah. The only good, yeah.
Canon hates it.
The only good camera Canon is the one with the Nikon lens.
Correct. But then, of course, they started building their own cameras, and they started off with the Canon, with the Contax.
Yeah, and I think there's a nice similarity in. We both started taking pictures with Nikon cameras, right?
Yeah.
And one of the peculiar things was that if you take a look to the manual focus lenses of Nikon, for instance, the 50mm 2.0 and you compare it to the Sonar, immediately you see the similarities between the lenses. It has the same feel, it has the same look on the pictures.
The same sharpness, the same type of contrast.
Absolutely. And if you look at the lens formula, and you can see it's a Sonar. Slightly adjusted for single lens reflex, obviously. In our case, because we never took pictures with a rangefinder camera from Nikon, so I can't say that these are identical. But there has to be a slight difference between a 50mm for a single lens reflex compared to rangefinder. When I got my 2, this one, yeah, that's my 2. We've got too much contact. It's not normal again.
Not enough.
This is the collapsible variant. I took pictures with it with color film, and I think it's safe to say that in 1932, when these lenses were designed, they were never meant to be used on color film. In 1932?
I'm not absolutely sure about that, because color film was invented pretty early.
That's true, but it was certainly no mainstream.
No.
So it's safe to say that for the most part, pictures were taken on black and white, right? So if you put a color film in your camera and you take pictures with a lens like this, you could suggest that maybe some faults will be incorporated in the picture, but no, absolutely not. It's unbelievably good. And like I said, it very much resembles Nikon, and it should be the other way around, of course, because Nikon came last, not first. But that's the silly thing, because when you take pictures with the camera, my first Nikon, that was
didn't know that phrase.
my first Nikon was a Nikon F. And I got it with a 2.0 50mm, and I've used that camera for ages and ages, and I did my school with it, and so I'm very acquainted with the quality of the lens. And if you then realize that these lenses were designed in the 1930s, well, that's
and
more or less that good.
At that age.
That's absolutely, it's 91 years old, coming from 2023. 91 years ago, they were able to make lenses this good. It's absolutely insane. So, I state now, dated, that the Sonar lenses and the Contax 2 and 3 were the start of modern photography as we know it today. I think it's safe to say.
I think so too. Especially when you take into account that the first Nikons were made completely after the Contaxes.
Yeah.
And the followers of the Nikon cameras, like the F, the F2, the F3, the F4, well, they all had Contax as their ancestor.
As their ancestor, yeah. Well, that's where I speak about in the Kiev story, is that up until the Nikon F2 there is still Contax DNA.
Oh yes.
After the F3, no more. Not so much, because it's designed by Porsche, or it's not Porsche.
Giorgio Giuliano.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Yeah. That wasn't the mayor of New York.
No.
So up until the last F2 was made in 1979, so it's safe to say that the direct descendant of Contax died in 1979, because in 1980 the F3 came.
Of course, but I mean, because those already were modern-like cameras.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is still a key on the bottom for opening the back. So that's Contax DNA, right? Still the sloped edges on the body. If you get a Nikon F and a Nikon F2, it still has that shape. So there's still a lot of Contax DNA even in those later Nikon F2s. And even if you to take a Nikon Mat for instance, the shape of the Contax is still there. Only after 1980 that changed because the Nikon FE and the FM. No, okay, they're silver and black. How came that about?
Yeah, I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for this part.
Any questions?
Good.